in, go ahead and put hashtag replay if this is the replay for you. And we focused on how to prioritize like a six-figure coach. I hope you are excited about this because this is one of the this is going to be one of our sessions that's really going to change the game for you. Because when I when I first started trying to figure this out, it was actually extremely hard to figure out what I needed to prioritize. And it makes it easy to know what to prioritize when you know what you're working on and not just working on a bunch of random activities. So that is what we focused on. So shout out to everybody that's coming through the school community. Hello, good to see you. And then shout out to all my people that is coming through our Facebook. All right, so what do we need to do? So we're going to focus on a big few ideas. We're going to focus on specifically what do you need to do in order to know like what to focus on, what matters in your business, what to prioritize, and then also how do you actually come up with the really the level of confidence knowing that you can do this, you can focus on the right things, you can put the right things in place. And then especially for my people that are busy, you're trying to figure out, okay, I want to run this coaching business, but my time is limited. How do I leverage my time correctly so I can still be able to live my purpose? Potentially you want to go full time in your business and be able to generate the type of revenue you want without wasting your time, right? Or wasting your money. So we're gonna focus on those things today. I'm gonna give you a couple of my experiences, and hopefully this helps you take your business to the next level. So I hope you guys are excited about this. This is something that took me over a decade to learn, and once I learned it, we were able to generate over 500, get over 588 clients into our coaching program. Launched 15 online courses, be a two-time best-selling author, and I do about 100 live events a year. I just did a couple of events out in for BET. I'm from New York, but did an event out in LA, and then we did our annual PCS boot camp, playbook the coaching and speaking boot camp, where we had folks who came in from on flights from across the country, drove over 10 hours to attend our events, and that's what we're doing for coaches. So hopefully you can take away some great insight. All right, so let's focus on the very first thing, right? I got some of my notes here, so let's focus on one of the first things, right? Is like um, how do you do this, right? Like, how do you actually figure out like what to do? I remember me trying when I really first started building this business in 2015. One of the biggest challenges I had was knowing what to actually focus on because there's so many Googles that saying, oh, you should focus on this, or hey, prioritize content, go to networking events, do do cold calling, do emails. I mean, it's just like so many different directions you can go with your business. Should I be focused on a funnel? Should I be focused on my website? Should I be focused on whatever, right? And the problem is when there's so many different directions, you ever felt like a deer in the headlights? Like it's like, oh, well, what do I do? Like I got like 10 different strategies. All these Googles is telling me to do these different things, and you end up really doing nothing, right? You ever felt like that? So that was me when I started, and I realized that in order priorities make the most sense when you have a goal, right? So you say my goal is what? My goal is to get to 10K per month as fast as possible. Let's say, okay, great. And so let's just say that's what your goal is, and you say, you know what, I want to make that within the next 12 months. I want to make that within the next 6 months, whatever, right? So if that's your goal, then you want to you basically not even find a strategy. You want a strategy, but what's more important once you have your goal is to filter, and you can start your notes off with that. You have to filter for the right strategy, because there was a quote that I forgot who said this quote, but there was a quote that said, "If you don't know what you're going, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." So you got to know where you're going. So you say, okay, my goal is to get to 10K per month. Okay, now you want to find somebody that has a strategy that aligns with you being able to achieve that. The good part about it is we created a strategy that literally just makes sense. And if you just follow it, you'll get to your goal as quickly as possible. Because I've been doing this for a decade, and we've helped hundreds of people in our program and thousands of people who outside of our program, just in our general communities and our trainings and our webinars and stuff like that. So I want you to write this down. This is out of all of the strategies out there, this is the one you want to filter to actually focus on. It's called the client growth matrix. The client growth matrix. That's what you want to focus on. The client growth matrix is going to focus on four things, right? Number one, you have to create your executive offer package. Your executive offer package. Coach T, what do you mean? Your offer, you have to create, you have to know what you're helping people with. If you're going to coach people, you should probably know what problems you're solving for them. Makes sense, right? And if you know, and then once you identify the problem that you're solving, because people are not joining your coaching program to be your friend. I don't want to break your heart. People ain't paying you thousands of dollars just to be your friend. They'll be your friend in the process, but that's not why they're joining your program. They're joining it because they have a problem that they need to be solved. And they see that you can help them solve it. And they're willing to exchange funds in order for you to help solve that problem for them. But you have to be clear on what problem you're solving. This is why I help everybody with everything is not attractive. I guarantee if you ever said that, I've said it before, but if you ever said that, if you ever known anybody who's ever said that, I guarantee they're not getting any clients, and I guarantee that they're not full-time in this business, and I guarantee they're probably not making much money, because people are not going to work with you based on helping everybody with everything. So number one is we're focused on you putting together that executive offer package. That is, what is the steps? What is the curriculum of A, B, C, D, E, F, G in order for you to help them achieve their goal? We like focusing on a 12-step process. So what are the steps you're going to help them? So you have to have that listed out. The second part of that is next, once you identify that, you have to identify, okay, you have to create a presence on social media. We live in a day and age right now that if you do not have a presence, people don't trust you. Social media is for trust. Most people think it's to get clients. Stick with me. It's actually to build trust. Once you build the trust, there's another process or strategy you're going to use in order to actually get clients. That takes me to the third point. That is actually, you have to focus on a lead generation system. A lead generation system is how we book appointments. When you're in a high ticket space, this is not selling like a $10 course or $20 ebook, or this ain't like none of that. This is, people are paying you hundreds or thousands of dollars. And if they're going to pay you that type of money, they should at least be able to talk to their coach. Would you agree? Right? If you're gonna join a program, wouldn't you want to talk to your coach? Wouldn't you at least be able to say, man, I'm gonna spend $2,000 on this program, $5,000, $10,000 on this program? Can I at least talk to the person that I'm learning from? Right? So, which means that is an appointment, or a lot of people call it strategy call it, either or, right? People got different names for it. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to meet with you. So you should be optimizing for appointments. So when you're talking about what should I prioritize in my day, when it comes to you generating revenue, you need to prioritize meeting with people, right? So especially if you already have your program. Then the fourth piece of it is you need sales conversions. You need to focus on sales conversions, meaning knowing how to have the conversation. It's not just about getting on a call with somebody and just chopping it up, talking like you're talking to one of your homegirls, talking to one of your homeboys. You have to have a specific way you're going to discuss the problems that your ideal client is having. And if you're able to do that, they're going to be more willing to say, "Oh, this person actually thought about. They actually took 2 seconds to think about how they're going to help me." If they feel like you're winging it, then they're gonna be less interested. So you don't want to be the type of person where they feel like, oh, this person is just winging it, and they'll rather go to somebody else who's more prepared, right? So you don't want to have that. So when we talk about the process, this is over my last decade. This is the process that you want to follow. We call it the client growth matrix. This is our strategy on how we do it, and there's specific techniques for it, but that's literally what you want to focus on. Put together your package first. So, Coach T, what should I prioritize? Let me ask you as a question. Do you have your program packaged already? If the answer is no, focus on that. If your program is ready, you can accept clients. Then the question is, Have you started to establish a social media presence? If I went to your social media right now, would I see posts of you talking about, of you discussing your topic? If the answer is no, then you need to focus on putting out content in your you need to focus on putting out content on your topic. Number three, okay, I'm putting out content. Okay, I have a program. Okay, great. Number three is leads. If you Are you generating leads? If I asked you how many appointments have you generated over the last 7 days, if your answer is zero, if your answer really, really, especially if you're just starting, if your answer is anything less than five, you definitely need to be focused on this. Definitely. So like you need to be, so if revenue is an issue and you're not booking at least 5 appointments a week, that is your number one constraint in the business right now. That is what you prioritize. That is what you focus on. Don't worry about the website. Don't worry about going to. I mean, you could go to networking events, but you have to go like every day for you to book those five plus appointments. So you should be like wanting to book 5 to 10 appointments a week. So that's what the goal is. So it's like, okay, is your calendar's empty? If you show me your calendar right now, is it empty? If it's empty, this is what you need to be focused on. You say, okay, coach, I'm generating 5 to 10 appointments a week. I spoke to 10 people last week. I spoke to 9 people the week before that. I spoke to 14 people before that. I spoke to 20 people before that. If you could start having these type of conversations with me and the sales aren't there, now I can start talking to you about sales. I can start talking to you about the scripting. I can start talking to you about tonality. I can start talking to you about overcoming objections. I can start talking to you about how to actually generate the sales. But if you're not booking any appointments yet, why are we even having a conversation about sales? And this is the problem why so many people stay stuck and they don't make 5 figures a month, is because they're not focused on the right things. They just, oh, let me do a little bit of this. Let me do a little bit of my website. Or I heard something about a funnel. Let me focus on a little bit of the funnel. Oh, let me spend all day creating content. You don't spend all day creating content. You put out content and then you move on to lead generation. That's it. You just put out some content today and then that's it. And then you move on to the next thing, because you got to book appointments, because that's how you make sales. Right. So people spend too much time. They'll spend hours and hours and hours in Canva, hours and hours and hours researching. I didn't say spend hours researching. I said create executive offer package, do content, put together do lead generation, which is going to bring you appointments, and then focus on sales conversions. And if you're doing anything besides these four, you're wasting time. There's a place and time for certain things, but on a consistent basis, that's what you need to be doing. Like easily 80% of your time needs to be focused on any one of those. And not all of them at the same time. It depends on what step you're on. That's the big key. All right, so hopefully you're taking a lot away from this, because I spent so many years like struggling and trying to listen to different people, and then like, one day I'm doing this and one day I'm doing that, and I didn't have no system and no process, and then as I started to figure this out, and I was able to go full time in my business in 2020, and we started bringing in way more hundreds of clients, I realized like, oh, this is literally the problem. They don't know a process. They're randomly trying to do things every day, and they don't have a specific system. Like for lead generation, like, if you're running ads, that's literally the easiest way. A lot of people you probably found me, depending on how long you've been following me for, you probably found me through ads, right? Think about it. We running ads, right? Think about how we get people into the group. We're running ads, right? I'm not going to 7 networking events every week. You know what I mean? I'm not cold calling. I'm not sending out all of these cold emails. I'm not spamming a bunch of people in DM and getting shadow banned, which, by the way, another separate, I remember my team one year, they didn't follow my process correctly, and they would just send out a bunch of cold messages. And I just realized like, oh, my engagement completely dropped. This is on my Instagram. I'm like, yo, my engagement completely dropped. And I realized that they weren't following my process. So and this was like years ago, and I ended up, they ended up like putting my engagement in jail. So I've been kind of working that back up over the years. But at the end of the day, but we're still generating revenue, right? I get people who got hundreds of thousands of followers, and they come to me to learn how to generate revenue. They come to me to learn how to get clients. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean when I say it's not necessarily the engagement or the likes and all that stuff that's going to get you the clients. It's understanding the right process. You get people that get 100 times more engagement than me, but I'm full time. right? They still, nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5. I started working in the 9 to 5, but but how have I been doing this full time for the last 5 years? How? I've been doing this in the industry for the last 10 years. When people are in and out. Every time you see them, they're working on something else. They're doing something else. They can't stay focused. It's because they don't know how to prioritize. So hopefully you took a lot away from that. Now, you might say, all right, Coach T, that makes a lot of sense for me. But I'm just not a naturally focused person. I'm just not a naturally disciplined person. So here's the biggest thing when it comes to being focused. It's not about you being naturally disciplined or focused. It's just more about doing less of the right activity, right? Because you might say, well, I'm not disciplined in order, like, I have to focus for an hour. I get distracted and a lot of things come up. Well, it makes it easier when you actually have a schedule. What I've noticed is most people don't really have a schedule. They say, oh, I kind of know what I need to do throughout the day. I kind of have an idea what I need to do throughout the day. But if I say, okay, if I say, okay, well, how do you remember when you have doctor's appointments? Oh, I put it on my planner. I put it on my calendar. How do you know when you have this important meeting you need to do? Oh, I put it on my. So my thing is, like, people pick and choose when they're going to be focused and disciplined to achieve things. Don't pick and choose. Like, if this is something you want to go full time, like, you really got to lock in and go full time on it. Like, so, even when I was building this, I didn't have, like, before I went full time, I was just kind of all over the place with it. I didn't really have a time that I was working on the business. I didn't really have days I was working on the business. It was like an afterthought, to be honest with you. It was like, okay, when I get around to it, maybe when I'm not working, or when I have free time, or after I go to the grocery store, or after I do this, or after I deal with the kid, or after I deal with it was always like everything else was prioritized first, and then my business was an afterthought. And then I wonder why my business wasn't allowing me to go full time, and I wonder why I wasn't generating the type of revenue that I felt like I should be generating. I wasn't treating it like I had a sense of urgency. I wasn't treating it serious enough. I didn't treat it serious enough where it was on my calendar, and I knew this day and this time every single day is what I'm going to be working on. So what changed? So I remember, I'm like, okay, something got to change. So what I started doing is, I said, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. I said, when can I work on this business? I'm gonna take it just as serious as I take my job. And I said, okay, I have an hour in the morning. So I said, I'm gonna wake up an hour earlier. So I started waking up at like 3, 4 in the morning. Everybody's schedule is different. You figure it out. But I was willing. I was usually waking up maybe 5:36, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna start waking up at 5. I started doing that consistently. Then I said, I'm gonna start waking up at 4. Then I started doing that consistently. And then for a brief time, I was waking up at 3, especially my boy ET, the hip hop preacher, was getting me hyped. 3 o'clock in the morning, he was getting me hyped. So there was a period of time where I was waking up at 3, right? But it was hard. It was hard for me to be consistent. But I was able to start figuring out 4:30. I can do it. Okay, boom. So then I started waking up an hour earlier, and then so that gave me that time. I said, okay, what's another time that I know I could commit? I said, first of all, I'm not missing lunch, meaning I already know that I'm going to go from lunch. I know that I'm gonna have time during lunch. I had an hour lunch break. So I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start spending that hour, and that's the time that I'm gonna be using to do strategy calls. So boom, I started focusing on the strategy calls. And then that started giving me more time. Then I said, okay, I got about 90 minutes, 2 hours after work. So I said, I'm gonna work on the business about 2 hours after work. And then I started doing that. And this is literally how I started finding time. So I started finding maybe 3 to 4 hours a day to work on the business. And then I said, okay, I got the time. Let me make sure that I'm focusing on the right things. That's why I hired the coaches. I said, let me get the right strategy. Let me make sure I'm focusing on the right things. So then guess what? During my available time, I would spend at least half that time booking appointments. I would spend that time doing the things that I need to do in order to start to generate the revenue. Because once you generate revenue, you can buy time. And that's going to take me to the third point of it. I hear people say, well, you know what, I really want to build this, but it's not the right time. I don't have enough hours in a day. I got this, I got 2 jobs, I got the kids, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm a wife, I'm a husband, they got a bunch of things going on. I'm in the military. I get it. You know what I'm saying? I understand. But at the end of the day, the best reason and the best excuse in the world is not going to allow you to build this to the amount of revenue you want to make it, and to the amount of impact that you want to make in this world. So, you know, you got to be able to prioritize this in order to be able to find the time. And literally, if you got to buy the time, buy it. Bring in a cleaner, to clean the house or wash the dishes or do the laundry. Bring in a virtual assistant. I had a conversation with one of our members the other day, and he was like, "Well, I can't afford to bring in a virtual assistant for 40 hours a week." I said, "Who said you had to hire them for 40 hours a week?" She said, "What you mean?" I said, "You could literally hire them for 5 hours a week, and they only charge, like, especially if it's overseas. I've seen virtual assistants as cheap as $3 an hour. So you mean to tell me you can't spend $15 a week to hire a virtual assistant to buy 5 hours?" I said, "Listen, I'm in Starbucks right now. Like, I could, what I mean, I could go to Chipotle right now and spend $15. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you could spend that to get a virtual assistant that's gonna buy your time back, and then that gives you the time to spend on higher priority tasks." So, when I mention these concepts, it seems simple, but it blows people's mind because, like, man, I never thought about that. Oh, I never knew that. And, but once you learn it, now you know it, you have no excuse not to do it. So if you need more strategies and ideas like this, this is why we do coaching. This is why you get the help, because there's really no excuse that anybody in the world could tell me on why they can't why they can't do coaching as their purpose. You can't convince me, because I've been doing it for a long time and I've helped thousands of people doing this. So I already know that any excuse that you could give, there's a way in order to actually make it work. There's a way to get help. There's a way to prioritize properly. There's a way to work on the right activities. There's a way to use automation. There's a way to get help. There's a way to hire an intern. My first year, I had my cousin help me. I ain't paying nobody. I had my cousin. He just believed in me. I'm like, "Yo, cuz, I really want to do this. I just need a little bit of help because I got a lot going on." He's like, "I got you," for like a year straight. My cousin, "Yo, what you need? You need to do this. You need an email. You need this created." And he just and because he believed in me, because I communicated to him with passion, and he believed me. And because he believed in me, this is what made him say, "I want to rock with you." I've hired interns. Interns have came and helped me and work with me for free. I've coached, and some of them, I'm talking about grown men and women way older than me, but they wanted to learn. And there was certain opportunities where I would allow certain positions of people to help and be able to get shadowed by me. So why wouldn't you be able to do that? Somebody who couldn't afford your services, why you couldn't bring them in on a limited basis to help you, and you teach them and you train them? You see what I'm saying? So there's ways to do it, but you don't know what you don't know unless you get the help and you get the coaching. So this is why these conversations are important. So at the end of the day, like, you really want to make six figures in this business, you can't wake up every day and not know what to work on. You can't. If you wake up every day and you're confused and what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? You're not gonna make it. You have to know, this is where I'm at in the process. This is what I'm looking to achieve today. Okay, great. Do the best of your ability to achieve that. You might have to hire somebody. You might have to, like, figure out certain strategies. There were certain things I didn't know. I'm like, all right, I'm booking appointments, but I don't know how to make sales. Guess what? I hired a sales coach. I spent a lot of money, like 5 figures, on on a coaching program that taught me sales. But I knew that was the constraint of my business, and I said, I got to learn it. If I'm gonna be in business and I'm gonna be making sales, how the hell am I gonna be in business and I'm gonna be making sales for the rest of my life? As long as I'm gonna be a business owner and I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, which I plan on doing for the rest of my life, and not know the skill of sales. What? Like, how am I gonna be in business and not know how to generate leads? Social media is the new television. How am I gonna be in business and not know how to use social media? All right, coaching literally is the service. How I'm gonna be in business and not know how to deliver on a service? That's like building a coffee shop, but you don't know how to make coffee. It's like, you got to learn how to make the coffee. You got to learn how to put together a program and an offer. You see what I'm saying? So these are the things that make the biggest difference in terms of uh, uh, building this in a profitable manner. All right. So hopefully you took a lot away from this. This is something you might have to keep revisiting and keep watching, because once you understand this process, you're going to start to know, okay, I get exactly what Terrell was talking about. All right. So go out, put this into play, and I want to see you be successful. All right. Other than that, continue to be great. Hopefully, I'll see you in a future training. Potentially, I might see you in our program. And reach out to me if you need any help. All right. Slow motion is better than no motion. Let's work.